What's up, everyone? And today I'm doing a deck profile on my Ursarctic. Now, this is a deck that I've actually wanted to build for a while, but I was just slowly picking it up piece by piece, and definitely spent a lot of time really practicing, because this deck profile, honestly, I was struggling to find a way to really get a win condition with Ursarctic, because it doesn't really have a very solid one outside of the Serpentine. And I've actually found a bit of a unique way to play that actually works better than some of the other profiles I've seen. Without further ado, let's get right into it. First, I run 3 Meek Polar. Now, all the Ursarctics have an effect to where during the main phase, quick effect, tribute one other level 7 or higher monster from your hand, special summon this card from your hand. So all Ursarctics do that, and when this card is special summoned, you can add one Ursarctic monster from your deck to your hand. Unfortunately, with the Ursarctics, you're locked into only special summoning monsters with a level, so no XYZ monsters and no links. So you can still fusion summon, you can still synchro summon. I also run the 3 Mekbillis. Mekbillis, when it is special summoned, you can special summon one Ursarctic monster from your hand. And I also run 3 Ursarctic Mectanus. When this card is special summoned, you can target one Ursarctic monster in your graveyard, add it to your hand. So these are the non-tuners that you want to max out of, and this is where most of your plays are going to come from. The Ursarctic tuners are nice, but they're better for going second in terms of their effects. These are good going first or second. And honestly, you can even put this down during your opponent's turn too, because this says during the main phase, quick effect. So you can do this during your opponent's turn as well, which makes it work a lot better with the engine I run in this. I run 2 of each of the tuners, the 2 Megatanus, the 2 Mekbillis, and the 2 Megapolar. And when Megatanus is summoned, or special summoned, you can essentially book a moon one of your opponent's monsters. Mekbillis allows you to banish one card from your opponent's graveyard. Yeah, one card in your opponent's graveyard. And the Megapolar, you can target a spell trap your opponent controls, destroy it. So those are better for going second. And it's very important. These are level 7s and these are levels 8. So with the Polar, you can actually make some pretty good stuff. I also run 3 Barrier Statue of Torrent. You don't normal summon in this deck, at all. The Torrent is really the only monster that you will normal summon. And it basically locks both players into only special summoning water monsters. And are there any competitive water decks out there? So it's really going to heavily limit your opponent on what they can do. And even if you want to go into something that's not water, you can easily get rid of the Torrent first. Now, a bit of a tech that I kind of play in this. I run a small P.U.N.K engine with the 2 Foxy-Tune and the 1 Shirkusai. So, Foxy-Tune, you can essentially discard itself and one other card to special summon the Shirkusai from your deck. And Shirkusai has a quick effect to, during another player's turn, you can synchro summon monsters using cards you control. So you can bring out the Yu-Gi-Oh! P.U.N.K Amazing Dragon on your opponent's turn if you want to, or you can do this on your own turn to go into a level 10 synchro, aka Baron de Fleur. And I definitely say this deck is definitely a lot better with this engine, because without it you're basically forced to rely on the Ursarctic monsters and the Barrier Statue. But having a Barrier Statue combined with, let's say, a Baron de Fleur, that's going to be pretty tough to beat. And like I said, you can easily get rid of the Torrents, because we do run a level 5 water monster that we can use Torrents and Polari with. For hand traps, I run 2 Ash, 2 Ogre, and 2 Ghost Mourner. If you want to take Mourner out for something like Imperm or Veiler, that is an option as well. The major reason I'm running Mourner now is because not a lot of people are, so the chances of it getting hit with the cross out is pretty low. Rather, Ash and Ogre have a good chance to get hit by a cross out. Moving on to the spells, and definitely the most powerful card in this deck, and it's a card that lets you draw 7 cards Yes, 7 cards, most oftentimes. Ursarctic Radiation. This card is insane. So you can activate this card by placing 7 counters on it, and each time an Ursarctic monster is special summoned from the hand or extra deck, you can remove 1 counter from this card, draw 1 card. And once per turn, you can target 1 Ursarctic card in the graveyard, except Radiation, shuffle into the deck. And that does not have a once per turn on it, so if you summon 7 Ursarctic monsters, you can draw 7 cards. And that's not exactly too hard to do. Of course, some hands, if you don't open Ideal, then Radiation can end up being a bit of a dead card. But it gives you way too much advantage to not run at 3. And it's easy to start, considering we run 3 Ursarctic Departure, which is essentially a 1-card starter in this deck. Because Ursarctic Departure, you can discard 1 card, add 2 Ursarctic monsters from your deck to your hands. And if you attribute a monster to activate an Ursarctic monster effect, except the turn this card was sent to the graveyard, you banish this card from your graveyard instead. So let's say you aren't lucky and you only open with 1 or no Ursarctic monsters. If you got this, boom, you got 2, you can start your plays. So definitely a mandatory at 3. I run the 2 Ursarctic Slider. It's essentially your monster born for the deck. You target an Ursarctic monster that is banished or in your graveyard, special summon it, but it cannot attack. Also destroy it during the end phase. And it is a quick play as well. So we can also do single plays with it using this, the Circus Sai or the other Ursarctic turn on your opponent's turn. And the only reason I run it at 1, because I had to make like a cut somewhere, and this is a card you do not want to open multiple of. You really want to open 1, and even if you get 1, it's not the most useful of cards. I also run the 1 Monster Born. And I run 3 Emergency Teleports to kind of pair with the Shurikasai, or if you want to, you can also use it for a Ghost Ogre as well. If you use it with a Ghost Ogre, then you won't be able to do the Amazing Dragon, but if you can still go into something like Baron, Trish, whatever you want. Also run the 1 Pot of Desires. Ideally, you could draw off of Radiation, and when Radiation gets going, it gets to the point where you really don't care what's left in your deck, it's just fodder for Desires. And the 1 Called by the Grave, because you really don't want to get hand trapped, but I don't really have the space for a cross out. If you really want to put a cross out, maybe cut the hand trap that lineup down a little, or maybe just take out a Initele, Slider, or Monster Born. Now, 1 card that we do not run is the Big Dipper. Now, this is different from most deck profiles, because all the ones I see, they run Big Dipper, but in my honest opinion, is Big Dipper really worth it? No. Well, sure, you can snatch it off of Polar, because whenever Polar is summoned, you can activate the Big Dipper, but honestly, you really don't need it. Like, sure, you can attribute, you can banish that monster from your graveyard when you attribute summon an Ursarctic monster. And its second effect, well, being good, because it can essentially become a Snatch Steal. That's very unlikely, and it's just too slow of a card. So I just cut it out entirely, and honestly, after cutting it out, the deck's doing just fine. Honestly, I'd say it's doing better without the Big Dipper. Because if you draw the Big Dipper, that's just a brick. We don't need it. And it just doesn't really give us enough. Moving on to the extra deck. We run 3 Ursarctic Polari, whatever. Now, the weird thing with the Ursarctics is that they cannot be synchro summoned. It must be special summoned from the extra deck by sending 2 monsters you control with a level difference. For Polari, is where the level difference is of 1. So essentially a level 8 and a level 7, or 5 and a 6. And, well, I did mention earlier, you can essentially activate the Ursarctic Big Dipper directly from the deck, but we don't play it because it's just not really that good. You contribute 1 level 7 or higher monster, add to your hand, or special summon an Ursarctic monster from your graveyard. So you can use this to extend plays, and then a lot of the Ursarctic effects can trigger when they're special summoned. So let's say you got you sent Meek Polar off an Ursarctic monster's effect. You special summon the Meek Polar and activate the Meek Polar's effect. Or you can use it to grab a tuner to go into another synchro play. And that's mainly what I use it for. I really don't use it for Big Dipper because I don't run it. I mainly use it for the tribute to special summon a Ursarctic monster from graveyard. Also run the 2 Ursarctic Serpentine or Septentrion. It's a weird name. Septentrion is essentially the boss monster of the deck and definitely the best card. And like Polari, can only be special summoned by special summoning with a monster by sending monsters you control with a level difference of 7 to the graveyard. So 1 level 8 and 1 level 1. And you can negate the effects of all face-up monsters without a level that were special summoned from the extra deck. So essentially, it's a Feather Storm for Lynx and XYZ monsters. So Verte's off, Apollosa, Access Code, you counter Zeus, Utopic Exile, which is definitely really good because the most common play is to grab a Verte and go into Dragoon. With a Serpentron on the field, it's not happening. The only way they can do it is if they have Fusion Destiny in hand. And if your opponent special summons a monster, you can add one Ursarctic card from your deck to your hand. So it's also a searcher on top of that. Also run the 1 Ursarctic Grand Chariot. Definitely the weakest of the Ursarctic Synchros. And same summoning requirements as Serpentron. If this card is special summoned, you can target 2 other cards on the field, destroy them, and once per turn, when a card or effect is activated that targets the Ursarctic monster control, quick effect, treat a monster from your hand or field, negate the activation. So this is definitely works really well with the Shirikisai. Considering you can just summon on your opponent's turn to destroy 2 cards on the field. So definitely really good. Also run the 1 Crystron and Metrix. Not for the effect, but for the effect it is a level 5 water monster. So let's say we have a Torrent on the field and we don't want it anymore. Just bring out the Polari, use those 2 to go into a Metrix, and you can go into any other synchro you want. Also run the 1 Ultimaya Tzolk'in, considering they're all high level monsters. You know, it can just easily grab you out a Crystal Wing Synchro Dragon. Also run some other like level 9s, 10s, 11s, stuff that's just really good to summon. I got the 1 Vermilion Dragon Mech and the 1 Ravenous Cargo Dragon Archithus. Those rarely come up, so like if you want to swap it out for something else, that is an option. I also run the 1 Trishla, Dragon of the Ice Bearer, as well as a Shenshin because it's also a level 9. I run 1 Baron de Fleur and the 1 Amazing Dragon. That's it for my Ursarctic deck profile. What do you think? Think Ursarctic's pretty cool? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video I make. Bye.